Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing your read aloud and it's going to be kind of similar to the one that you did yesterday, but it's going to be all about amphibians. It's actually a chapter from your Unit 2 readers. So if you want to follow along, if you have your reader, you can, or you can look on the screen and follow along with me as I read it. And we're also going to be filling out page 6.3 of your Unit 2 workbooks. So if you don't already have 6.3 out, go ahead and get it out, and we're going to fill in the web together. It looks like this. It has 6.3 at the top. We're going to fill in the web together so that you guys can use this later to do an activity in class. So make sure you're listening with me and following along and then adding the things into the web when we talk about them. Oh. Sorry, had to wait for the bell. Okay, so Chapter 7 Amphibians. Greetings once again from your pal and animal expert, Rattenborough. Are you ready to learn about another group of animals within the animal kingdom? This group we are going to talk about today is really interesting. They live both in water and on land. This group of animals is called amphibians. The word amphibian comes from Latin meaning both sides of life. Amphibians are classified into three more specific groups. Frogs and toads are the largest group. Salamanders and newts make up another. Animals in the third group do not have legs, so they look more like large snakes. We don't know as much about this group of amphibians because they live mostly underground. Okay, so we just got a lot of information from that first page we read, so I want to make sure we add it to our web. Okay, so one of the first things we learned was that amphibians live both in water and on land. So live in water and on land. We can put both. Live both in water and on land. And then we also learned that they can be classified into, let's move this over here so you guys can see it. They can be classified into three groups. Okay. Classified into three groups. So the first was frogs and toads. The second was salamanders and newts. And then the third they were like snakes. So we'll just put like snakes. Remember, they were like large snakes and they live underground. They don't know much about them though, because they live underground. Okay, so make sure yours looks like that, or you have this. It doesn't have to be in the exact same spot, but just make sure you have all of the same information. So you're writing the same thing by one of the points of the webs. All right. If you ever need to go back and pause it to finish writing, that's fine too. Make sure you're getting it all filled out. So if you need to pause it, you can pause it and then unpause it once you're done copying. Okay, so you should be done copying now. And we're going to go back to page 59 and we're going to start on the top where it says to understand. So to understand the life cycle of an amphibian, let's take a closer look at an American toad. Like all amphibians, toads are cold-blooded. An amphibian's body temperature changes as the outdoor temperature changes. Some amphibians hibernate during the winter. Some toads dig deep underground. Other amphibians, like frogs, bury themselves in the mud at the bottom of a pond. Hibernating amphibians can survive for months. They do not eat or move, using only the fat stored in their body to stay alive. Frogs and toads, and all amphibians, are also vertebrates. Okay, so we just learned a lot more information, so we got to go back over to our web on 6.3. We're going to add it in. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So we learned that some amphibians hibernate. So some hibernate. That means that they sleep through the winter when it's cold. There we go. And we also learned that they are cold-blooded vertebrates. So cold-blooded vertebrates. That means that they don't have a backbone. I'm sorry, they do have a backbone, just like us, because we're vertebrates and we have a backbone, and so do amphibians. Okay, so we're going to go to the next page. Remember, if you need to go back and rewind the video, you can to finish filling in your web, or you can pause it. Okay, so we're going to start at the top of the page. A toad's life cycle begins at let's start over. A toad's life cycle begins as one of thousands of soft, slimy eggs. The mother lays her eggs close to shore in a pond, lake, or calm spot in a river or stream. But most of these eggs will never hatch. Instead, they will be eaten by fish or other animals. If the water moves the eggs away from the shore into direct sunlight, the eggs will dry out and die. Out of thousands of eggs laid, a few hundred toad eggs manage to hatch into tadpoles. A tadpole is very fragile. Its young body is made up mainly of a mouth, a tail, and gills. At this stage, tadpoles are aquatic. Like fish, they use gills to breathe underwater. And you can see the life cycle over here in this diagram over here on the right side of the page. So they go from eggs to tadpoles, and then we're going to learn about them going from tadpoles to young amphibians, then to adult amphibians, and then the adult amphibians lay eggs again. So it just keeps going. Okay, so we want to add the information we learned on this page to our web. So we learned, well, we just talked about the life cycle. We didn't learn completely about it, but we know what it's going to be because we saw the diagram. So we're going to go ahead and fill that in now. Maybe, if it lets us. There we go, finally. Okay, so the life cycle of an amphibian goes from eggs to tadpoles to young amphibians to adult amphibians. Okay, so pause if you need me, or if you need to finish up, and then you can unpause once you're done copying. Okay, we're going to turn the page. All right. After a while, tadpoles begin swimming around and eating tiny aquatic plants. Tadpoles tend to stay together in schools like fish. So schools are just like a pack or a herd. So like a pack of wolves or a herd of cows. They're like a big group. So when they say they're together in schools, they're like in a big group of other tadpoles. Okay. However, this makes it more likely that other animals will be able to catch and eat them. Most tadpoles end up as fish snacks. If a tadpole survives for a month, skin will begin to grow around its gills. After about 6 to 9 weeks, the tadpole also starts to grow little legs. As its body changes, the young frog or toad starts to look less like an aquatic animal and more like a land animal. So it starts growing its legs and it looks more like it belongs on land instead of like it needs to swim in the water. After a few months, a toad will make its way out of the water to land. At this stage, it may still have a tail, but that won't last long. By the time its gills have become lungs, that by this time its gills have become lungs, so its gills have changed to lungs, so now it doesn't breathe the water, it breathes in air like we do. That means that toads now breathe oxygen from the air instead of oxygen from the water like fish. Soon, it will be a full-grown adult toad living and hopping around on land. Adult amphibians are carnivores, eating insects, small reptiles, and even mice. Okay, so we're going to fill in our web over here, what we just learned on that page. Okay, so we learned that amphibians are carnivores. So they eat meat, right? Just like we do. All right. And we're going to go back, go to the next page. Okay. Adult toads are very good swimmers and can even swim underwater, but they cannot use their lungs to breathe underwater. Instead, their thin, moist skin absorbs oxygen from the water. Amphibians are a very interesting animal group. Amphibians are the only type of animal that have both gills and lungs. As adults, they live on land but lay eggs in the water. The Latin meaning of the word amphibian makes perfect sense. So, you guys remember at the beginning of the story, they said the Latin meaning of amphibian means both sides of life. So, why do you think they say that amphibian means, or makes sense that that amphibian would mean both sides of life? So, think about that. Why do you think they would say that? Okay, well, let's fill in our last point on our web. Maybe if I can get it to work here. There we go. And I'm going to put it down a little bit lower because I can't get this thing to go away. So we're going to put that they have both gills and lungs. So that'll be our last point. So if you need to pause me, you can to finish up. If not, that's it. Make sure you're bringing 6.3 back to school with you tomorrow if you're an in-person learner. If you are a remote learner, make sure that you are either completing this on